So with Season 1 of the War Within starting, we have also gotten the release of the first raid of the expansion, Nurubar Palace, and this also means there's some pretty extreme gold making opportunities with the launch of this raid. Now if you're a veteran WoW player, this gold farm will be pretty self-explanatory, but if you're a newer player, this may be something new to be able to go earn a ridiculous amount of gold, especially if you go do this farm within this first week. Now this farm is very simple, albeit potentially inconsistent, because all you're going to be doing is farming the BOE gear drops from the trash mobs within the raid. And specifically with Nurubar Palace, this farm is even more simple because you're not going to have to find a specific raid lockout where you're saved to some boss to be able to have a more efficient mob grinding spot. The mob grinding location everybody's currently using in this raid is right at the start. So you enter in the raid, there's a bunch of big packs in the first room, you kill those, you go up some stairs, then out on this terrace there's another pack, then you head to the right, there's 2 more packs and a few flying enemies around. After you've gotten done killing all of those packs, everybody's gonna leave, you're gonna reset the raid and go back in, and that's legitimately gonna be the entirety of the raid. Now obviously you're gonna have to have a bunch of other players doing this with you, you're not gonna be like solo farming this or something, but you should be able to find groups pretty easily through the group finder. Just go under raids or maybe under custom and just type in BOE and there should be a bunch of groups already going, and that's legitimately all you're going to be doing for this farm. And every single enemy you kill, you have the potential of getting one of these drops. And a big disclaimer with farms like this is that it can be inconsistent. You could potentially come here and farm for a couple hours and not get a drop. Now I do think that would actually be pretty rare because I went and farmed this for a little over an hour with a group of 10 and pretty much everybody got at least 1 drop within that hour. Now we could have been decently lucky, but it does seem like you'll have a pretty decent chance of getting at least 1 drop when farming this for, let's say, an hour. Now you can still get unlucky and not get a drop in an hour. Even if you get like 1 of these drops in like 2 or 3 hours, the price of these drops currently are absurdly ridiculous because of how early it is. Now another pretty big element of raid BOE farms is what difficulty you're going to be farming this raid on, because whatever difficulty you're doing is going to determine the item level of that gear. So the higher difficulty raids you can farm this on, the more gold you're going to be able to get, because going from say a normal piece of gear to heroic is probably going to 4x or 5x the amount of gold you could potentially be getting. Now with this first week of season 1, mythic raids aren't out yet, and I'm not sure how they're going about BOE drops in mythic this expansion, so maybe the first week of mythic also won't drop any BOE drops, but in this first week you can go farm in a heroic, which is going to give you 616 item level gear, which is very high. Most people don't have that high item level of gear, so you're going to be able to make an absurd amount of gold. In fact, the item I got from my first farm session of this currently has an average price of 1.8 million gold on US realms. Now I think that's going to be a bit higher than what it's generally going to be selling for, but I would say these shoulders I got have a pretty good chance of selling for 1 million gold. Now these prices are going to drop pretty quickly. As of right now, there's like 130 of these drops at that item level across all US servers, so not a ton, and they will keep dropping in price as time goes on, but I do think they will still be worth hundreds of thousands of gold even next week and probably the week after. And also keep in mind that price I just went over is for the base roll. You can also get these rolled with tertiary stats and sockets, and getting either of those rolls massively increases the price. If you get the absolute god roll of like a socket and maybe something like leech, you could probably like triple or more the price of these items and they'll still probably sell, because if you get a roll that crazy, even stuff like world first guild or people trying to get maybe top 100 first raid clears of like mythic or stuff like that would absolutely spend a ridiculous amount of gold to get one of those items. And I'm also not sure how they're going about these drops because I was playing a plate character and I got these shoulders that we went over, which are leather shoulders. So I'm not sure if any class can get any of these drops or if you have to be able to equip the item, and that's why a plate wearer could get a leather item. Not 100% certain on that, but I don't really think that's going to matter. I don't think you necessarily have a higher chance to get one of these if you can get all of them or if you could only get a handful of them. And it seems that there's currently 9 of these BOE items you're able to get. So you're able to get the Venom Stalker's Strap, which is a leather belt. You're able to get the Lurker's Marauder's Binding, which is a mail belt. You're able to get the Prime Slime Slippers, which are cloth boots. You're able to get the Heritage Militia's Stompers, which are plate boots. You're able to get the Acidic Attendant's Loop, which is a ring. You're able to get the Shrill Wing Hunter's Prey, which are mail shoulders. You're able to get the Adorned Lynxborn Pauldrons, which are leather shoulders, which is the item I got. You're able to get the Captured Earthen's Iron Horns, which is a plate helmet. And then you're able to get the Web Acolyte's Hood, which is a cloth helmet. Now, on top of these items just being ridiculously expensive because of the actual power of the items, there is still going to be a reason to pretty much always farm these, even in future expansions, because all of these items look cool, and in a similar way to a lot of previous raids, these have the exact same looks of tier sets do for certain classes. So the Web Acolyte's Hood is the appearance of the Priest tier set. And while there's only a handful of these items, so you wouldn't be able to get like a full transmog set from these BOEs, the other non-tier armor in the raids also have other appearances of those tier sets. So you can usually get a decent chunk of the appearances of a class-specific tier set in random drops throughout the raid, and there's usually 1 or 2 of each of the sets as BOE drops as well. So these items are always going to be worth quite a lot of gold, even in future expansions. They're just not going to be worth like 1,000,000 gold all the time. But that's pretty much the entirety of this farm. And for me personally, I actually really enjoy farms like this specifically because you get to go into, say, the heroic raid and kill trash and farm up these big groups of enemies, which are obviously not going to be super easy to kill. You are in the heroic raid, so they're going to be somewhat challenging to kill. And I think that's much more fun than, say, AoE mob grinding out in the open world where you're pulling enemies that are basically just dying to like random dot or AoE damage. You actually get to go through your rotation and fight some somewhat difficult enemies. So I find that much more enjoyable. I could go do this farm for a few hours and not get burnt out near as quickly as, say, AoE mob grinding farms. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.